Welcome back. In our last deep dive, part 4, we really explored the power of prayer when our hearts line up with God's will. We looked at Gethsemane, Pharaoh, Paul, Solomon, that idea of agreement being key. But now for part V, the big question, what happens after the waiting? When the prayer is finally answered, when God says yes. So today, we're diving into when the answer comes.
Yeah, and it's fascinating, isn't it? Because the sources show us that getting the answer, well, it isn't really the end. It's more like the beginning of a completely new chapter.
A new chapter. Okay, well, let's unpack that. What does that actually look like for us?
Well, it brings joy, of course, but it also brings responsibility, gratitude, definitely, but also stewardship. And crucially, it requires staying dependent on God, not, getting fixated on the blessing itself. Prayer doesn't just stop. It actually deepens.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this new chapter, the sources offer some powerful stories. Let's maybe start with Hannah.
Right, Hannah. She prayed for years for a child, a very deep personal prayer. And God gave her Samuel. But her reaction wasn't, he's mine. No, she followed through on her vow. She dedicated Samuel right back to the Lord. It's a powerful lesson, really. True prayer, when answered, leads to surrender, to stewardship. The answers are trusts, not possessions.
Surrender and stewardship. That's a strong start. Now, shifting from that, what about Simeon? His prayer was different, right? Not for a thing, but to see something.
Exactly. Simeon was promised he'd see the Messiah before he died. He waited faithfully, we don't know how long, but likely years. And then Mary and Joseph bring baby Jesus to the temple. Simeon holds the answer literally in his arms. And what does he do? His prayer turns into pure praise. Lord, now let your servant depart in peace. He saw God's salvation. For him, fulfillment wasn't about getting something for himself. It fueled worship. No entitlement there.
And then there are times the answer is just so unexpected. We almost miss it. Like the early church praying for Peter. That story always gets me.
Oh, absolutely. It's almost comical in a way. They're praying intensely for Peter's release from prison. God sends an angel, miraculously frees him. Peter goes and knocks on their door. And they don't believe it's him. They think it's his angel.
Right. Rhoda runs back saying, Peter's at the door. And they're like, you're out of your mind.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When answers come, especially in ways that maybe blow past our expectations, we have to learn to actually recognize God's hand at work and, rejoice.
It's almost like getting the answer can be just as challenging as waiting for it. Why is that? Why do we sometimes struggle after the yes?
The sources point to a few key things. One is definitely the temptation of pride. Thinking, I did this, or my faith was so strong. Deuteronomy warns about that. Then there's the burden of stewardship. Answers come with responsibility. Think of Solomon's wisdom, great gift, huge accountability. And, maybe the most common, the danger of forgetfulness. Turning the blessing itself into an idol, forgetting the giver. Psalm 106 talks about how quickly Israel forgot after being delivered.
Pride, burden, forgetfulness. Okay, so given those pitfalls, what's the right response? How should we act when that answer finally comes?
The sources are pretty clear. First, deep gratitude. Like that one leper who came back to thank Jesus, that kind of act of thanks, it actually seems to multiply the blessing. Second, testimony. Sharing what God has done. It strengthens others' faith. Psalm 118 mentions this. Third, and this is key, continued prayer. It just shifts, from asking for the thing to asking for wisdom to manage it, sustain it, protect it, like Nehemiah praying after the wall was rebuilt. And finally, echoing Hannah, surrender back to God, giving the blessing back to him, trusting his purposes for it.
I also think Joseph's story fits here so well. His dreams came true, but wow, what a journey. It wasn't about personal triumph in the end, was it?
Not at all. He saw the bigger picture. You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good, he says. That's humility, mercy, service, using the answered prayer for a greater purpose. And Daniel, too. After interpreting that dream for Nebuchadnezzar, he immediately points upward. There is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, always glorifying the giver, or even Elijah praying for rain. It started so small, remember, just a cloud the size of a man's hand. The lesson seems to be, don't dismiss small beginnings and answer. God often multiplies them.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you listening right now?
Well, maybe you're right in the middle of an answered prayer today. Or maybe, like the early church, the answer is knocking, and you haven't quite recognized it yet.
The encouragement here feels really powerful. When the answer comes, don't forget the one who gave it. Don't stop praying, just shift the focus. From asking to sustaining, from pleading to praising, and maybe hold that blessing a little loosely. Release it back towards God's purposes.
Yeah, the answer isn't the end of the road. It's really a doorway. A doorway into deeper responsibility, yes, but also deeper gratitude and worship.
So as you think about all this, maybe consider this. When God has answered your prayers in the past, how did you respond? Was it celebration of a possession, or was it stepping into, well, a deeper partnership with Him?
Something to reflect on. Until next time, remember, prayer doesn't end when the answer comes. It truly deepens.